Good to see you today. Good morning. I hope you all are doing all right this morning. Happy Monday. We made it. It is the end of close to the end of the month. It's Monday, September 29th, and we're still here. We are still here. It's good to see you sober with a twist. Thank you for being here. Hey, Book Cats Coffee. Hey, Sophia. Thank you for being here on Substack, Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. Wherever you're joining from, I'm grateful that you're here. You didn't have to be here, but you chose to be here. So whether you're watching live, hey Janine, whether you're watching live or you're catching the replay, hey Sarah, today I want to talk about something that we all face in our lives, something that we're all facing as a collective, and this is setbacks. And when I was thinking about today and setbacks, I was thinking about 2020 and a song that I was a part of where I said a setback it is a setup for a comeback. And I remember getting that when I was heavy in the church from my pastor once, who said setbacks are setups for comebacks. And so I was thinking about how right now feels like we're being set back in time, set back in history. And I just want us to know that no matter if it's personal, professional, spiritual, or in liberation work, we know that we're hitting walls. And even when you hit a wall, you can pick yourself back up. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to connect parts of history and then how we can heal our way forward, because it's all interconnected, whether you are encouraged or disencouraged. It's all connected. And so for me in my life, I've had multiple seasons throughout my life where doors have closed and I thought that the doors would be shut forever, where I thought everything was linear. But that's not necessarily true. I want to remind us that every moment throughout history, from the civil rights movement to Jim Crow, everything started with a setback. The reasons why we show up and we do the work of liberation is because there's always Dr. Belinda calls it a cataclysmic event. There's always an event that comes to shake you up a little bit, and you have a choice. You can let the event break you, or you can let the event empower you. And so everything starts with the setback. And, when we connect it to history, we have to remember that enslavement didn't happen overnight, that Jim Crow didn't break us without resistance, especially Black folks, and we kept rising. Our ancestors didn't survive for us to not thrive. And so when we look at more history, let's talk about some historical moments that I think everyone might be forgetting. So when we look at history, we can start at Reconstruction. And so in Reconstruction, that was from about 1865 to 1877. And it was like the promise of freedom. So after the Civil War, we had this promise of Reconstruction. You had some Black people elected to public office. You had Black schools and Black churches. We had the Freedmen Bureau that supported emancipated people. But then white supremacy came back and came fast, because then they had Black codes, lynchings, and the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. And all of this was to destroy Black autonomy and humanity. And if you don't know what Black codes are, I'll give you a little bit of example. When I was a little girl, my grandmother was born in 1924. When I was a little girl, my grandmother, we would be walking down the street, and whenever we saw white people, we would cross the street or move out of their way until they finished passing us. Well, there was a law when my grandmother was a child down in Florida and other parts of the Carolinas that it was illegal for Black folks to be on the same side of the sidewalk as white folks. And so there were multiple times that my grandmother, even when I was in middle school, would always move off the sidewalk because that was a codified law in certain states. And so the comeback from that moment was, even in the face of regression, we still learned how to survive and thrive. We followed the law and we kept moving and we kept smiling. And from the birth of Reconstruction, you had Black colleges and universities, and the church became the site of liberation and mutual aid. And that's why my grandmother so often did a lot of work in the church, did a lot of volunteer work in the neighborhood, because that was her way of not feeling powerless, is by going and showing up and volunteering her time for the community. And then we go to Jim Crow, which is when it was legalized oppression and we had to go underground and resist. And so Reconstruction it ended. It never really happened. Uh, and we actually, the US went into a century of legal segregation. So they use separate but equal. And you still hear people today of certain ages saying separate but equal. And it was used to justify exclusion and violence. Um, Voting rights were kind of stripped away, and just living life was criminalized, specifically not for Black folks, but also folks who were during this time, also for immigrants. And I think that's some of the story that we don't remember is immigrant families, Irish, Italian, Jewish, etc. There was like forced assimilation, right? So they were also segregated against and also assimilated for survival, right? And that's how, if you read books like How the Irish Became White, How the Jewish Became White, White People's History of the United States, there's so many books that I don't think people have read. You could also learn about the struggle of white immigrant families that came over here between 1877 and 1865. But anyways, I just want us to know that like there's always some form of suppression, but the comeback is always that resistance doesn't stop. Black folks and other immigrant families built economic cooperatives. For Black people specifically, you had the artistic movement like the Harlem Renaissance and underground networks of resistance. There were the Pan-Africanist movements. You had organizing in the South, and then you had like the Black press. And so even in this time period where you had the Jim Crow era, you still had comebacks where maybe the resistance wasn't as loud, but it was still happening. And I want to encourage everyone that if you feel setback, that could be what's happening right now. Sometimes resistance isn't loud. Sometimes it shows up in your everyday choices. The third part that I want to go into is the civil rights and countercultural movement, where progress was met with repression. That was from the 1950s to the 1970s. And so when the civil rights movement started to gain momentum, you had the Montgomery boycott, the March on Washington, the Voting Rights Act, and you saw that the state joined with violence and co-option. You saw freedom fighters that were murdered, from Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Medgar Evans. And then you saw how COINTELPRO infiltrated movements to destabilize and criminalize resistance movements, specifically resistance movements. And the comeback is, even in all of that, you still saw the Voting Rights Act of 65, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You saw the Black Power Chicana movement, Red Power, and second wave feminism. And then you saw the Black Panther Party introducing community survival programs like free breakfast and health clinics, showing us the power of care as resistance. I want to just stop myself right here and tell y'all, why am I using history as the teacher in this moment? Because right now, all of us, whether it's again personal, professional, spiritual, we're all experiencing historical comebacks. And what's a historical comebacks? Everything that I've named from 1865 to 1970 is making itself visible right here in this moment. And we have several choices that we can do. We can look at history and see how all of our resistance movements make comebacks, or we can get hit with things and do what I do usually, which is, oh shit, life's horrible. I hate my life. I hate myself, blah, 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 blah. Nothing's going to change, etc. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's felt that way, like in the last 90 days or so. What are we doing? Why does it matter? Well, history shows us that we keep coming back. We bounce back, and we don't bounce back in this rugged individualism. It's only about one culture. We don't bounce back that way. We bounce back together because care is the resistance. And we survive together, whether you believe it or not, whether you practice it or not. That's the reminder for this morning, right? Is that the care is in the resistance. And so let's talk about the setback during the women's rights movement. During the women's rights movement, Similar to the suffragist movement, and we look at second wave feminism, there was the myth of inclusion. And it was this idea that, oh, it's such an intersection movement and all people are welcome. But then you had the comeback where you had Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde and Angela Davis and the uh, the non-binary women, feminists at the Combahee River Collective that told the truth. And the truth was, etc., we're not all free and we're not all included. And then they built the frameworks for intersectional feminism that centered race, class, sexuality, gender together. And the saying was from the Combahee River complex, right? Like if Black women were free, it would mean everyone would have to be free. And I don't think that that's the part of the story that anyone focuses on is who are the group, what groups are not free? What groups, all of us are oppressed, what groups are marginally oppressed even within our oppression? And when we free the oppressed groups, then we can all be free, right? So the comeback from the setback of Black and Indigenous women not being included is that they started to name it and write books and go to conferences and tell stories and encourage white folks to stay engaged in the work of liberation. And then we had the Black liberation movement of the 1960s to present. And you had the Black Panthers to now. You have multiple groups that exist. And the setback of the Black Power, Black liberation movement was COINTELPRO, state violence, assassinations, imprisonment, and being labeled terrorists. History is the teacher because right now we see an executive order that anyone who talks about anti-capitalism, uh, and I think I can't remember the whole executive order that was signed over the weekend, will be labeled a terrorist, a non-patriot. And so the narrative is back again that Black liberation is dangerous, that all of our liberation is dangerous. So what do we do? Do we allow ourselves to run and hide from this, or do we do what we do best, which is move underground? The legacy and the reminders are still here. The comeback from this is mutual aid and care, and global consciousness, and building this reparative future where Black women, queer leaders, and community organizers get to help us shape the narrative where it's rooted in abolition, care, and our imagination. The one thing that keeps us coming back from setbacks is our dreams and our imagination. And a lot of people are so hopeless that you don't know that you have dreams and you don't know that your dreams and your imagination to create the world that you want to see is actually the answer to everything that we're experiencing in real time. Because history teaches us that every time progress is made, the system of oppression will push back. But every time we've been pushed back, we've always got back up, and we've gotten back up with more resilience, more organization, and more truth. And this is the design and this is the blueprint that my ancestors left for me. And other folks' ancestors may have left for you. The problem is that we see all the pain, we see all the suffering, we see everything that's happening in our life, and we can't get past the rose tinted glasses. We won't even take the glasses off, you know. And right now, I fight algorithms to be seen, right? I hit my own wall. I mean, I knew something was coming when my own account got banned and taken down for the new one. When you try to log into the Threads account, if it's the check your privilege account is a violation, uh, I'm gonna try to log in and show you all live one day. It's a violation of their community guidelines, which is very interesting because it was a community-led platform rooted in community humanity and empathy. But anyway, um, and I hit a wall, and it's been an interesting challenge even now because other accounts are being taken down, other accounts are being targeted by the tech. And so when we're targeted by tech, what do? Well, we have to kind of start going underground, you know. A lot of us who are for our organization, we use a lot of tech companies, and what we're recognizing is a lot of these tech companies are in support of oppression. And so we have to start building our own coalitions and our own platforms and our own technologies so that we have spaces to be. But then what happens when you build the technology and COINTELPRO shows up? This is about to be an interesting next 3 years. I'm saying three because I have dreams and I have hopes of something different, of something better than this. Hasn't even been a full year, but something better is coming. And it's going to take all of us to collectively believe it and feel it and see it, that something better is coming. And that's where the dreams come into play. That's where the hope comes into play. That's where our dreams stay alive. That's where we become the writers of this moment. That's where we can help shape the narrative of the new history of, we have two choices, y'all. We can lay down and let these folks beat us down with all this breaking news and all this heartbreak, or we can all create journals of our own histories that can be passed down through generations. So his story will say, oh, this president was the greatest president of all time and did all these great things. We have our own record of what happened, and we use that to dream of something better. Because over years, it's been like, my job is to show up and make this world a better place. And I can't remember who says it, and I'm going to look it up because I like to cite my sources. But I think the goal is to leave things better than we found it for the future generations. What's coming up for me is there's a song by someone named Maren Morris from 2023 called Better Than We Found It. But I also think that this is actually a book. It is a book. Thank you. The book was written in 2022. It was written by Frederick Joseph and Portia Joseph, and it's called Better Than We Found It, Conversations to Help Save the World. That's a resource if you all want to look it up. But I think that's the goal. I think that's why we do this work, is we think that we're doing it for now, for this moment, and we're fighting for freedom and justice for all. Wow, that was the Pledge of Allegiance. That's something else. Like, why are we pledging allegiance? Anyway, come back. But I think the goal is for us to know that this setback, you can see it in history. And that's why I said it's a recalibration, a reset, a pause. They need to shake us up so that we feel like we are powerless and can't do anything. But when we allow ourselves to rest and to sleep and to reflect, we can begin again. But we're not starting over from scratch. We're starting over from where we left off and from wisdom. I just want us all to know that the answers are right there in history. Like, the movements that I gave, let me give them to you again so that you all can go look them up for yourself. If you go look at from 1865 to 1877, go look at Reconstruction, go look at Jim Crow, 1877 to 1965, look at the civil rights and countercultural movements of the 50s and the 70s, look at the Black liberation movement, right? When you tie it all together, you can see the pattern. And if you're someone who has pattern recognition, you can see that there was struggle, there was oppression, but there was also dreams in the imagination of what's possible and what could be made possible. Not to sound like Star Wars, but it's like you got to have hope. And Bell Hooks said in Class Matters, let me make sure I'm giving you all the right Bell Hooks books so you can look it up for yourself. Bell Hooks has a book called Where We Stand, Class Matters. And she has a quote that says, hopelessness breeds inaction. And that's why they need us to be inactive, because they want us to, in a nutshell, they need us to feel powerless and hopeless. And history will always show us that no matter what happens, we always come back from it. We always come back, always. No matter what the oppression is, there's always pieces of it that we can come back from. You just have to dream it and believe it and walk in it. And so just remember, the setback is just the pause. It's not like you're starting from scratch. It's just the pause. I'm talking to myself too. I'm not just talking to y'all. So if you are sitting in a setback right now, it's a good time to name it and to talk about it And then ask yourself, what is this preparing me for? Because there's something happening, but you probably can't see it. Sometimes the setbacks are set up for comebacks. I said that in 2020, and great things happened after I said that on an album. And then just saying it now. And you have to reflect and think about, what is this preparing me for? There's something amazing on the other side of it. And I can only call it amazing is because when I look at history and I look at my ancestors and I look at when I practice Sankofa, which is the practice of walking forward but looking back for the lessons, it doesn't feel like it in every moment. It doesn't feel like when you're restless, and it doesn't feel like it. But I know for my life, if I look back over my life, there's this gospel song uh called I Have a Testimony. And it says, when I look back over my life and I think, when I look back over my life and I think things over, I can truly say that I've been blessed. I have a testimony. And that was the gift of the church during moments of oppression, during the lowest moments. It was the place that you went to remind yourself, what is this preparing me for? That I've been through worse, I've been through it before, and I can do it again. So just ask yourself, whatever you're going through, I got a text this weekend that said the personal is political and the political is personal. And whatever your wordplay is, without quoting someone else, without seeing me as an expert, I want you to ask yourself, what is this preparing me for? And the answer will show up. You just have to pause. And what I'm learning is that over time, it's been a journey for me, is that every pause is a reminder of what better is coming. That's why today's title was Setback is a Setup for a Comeback, because something I said 4 years ago, 5 years ago, came to me this morning, and I said, okay, setback is a setup for comeback. How do we tie that in with history so that we have evidence? Because that's something else that the mind looks for, is that the mind looks for evidence of, well, how do I know that this is true? How do I know? What do you mean? And just think about moments of your own life, the moments of your life where you were at the lowest, that you didn't see no way out. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was like, bam, here comes the magic. Like that song, Here Comes the Sun, do, 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 do. Every great movie, every great story shows you the cataclysmic event, the event that just shuts everything down. And then it shows you in the pause and in the moment of giving up and in the rupture that something magical happens in the darkness. Because dark is beautiful. And that's how you find the light. And so I just want you all, that whatever you're navigating, whether it's individual, collective, or both, that you do have the capacity to grow, heal, and change. And I think the moment that showed me, I think for me, the moment that showed me my own capacity, if I could think of something more most recent, I think it was right before September 8th. September 1st, I said, I was looking on the internet and I was looking at all the conversations, the breaking news, the I wasn't working or anything. I was just scrolling because I was still in this shock about, oh my God, my account is down. What am I going to do? I don't know if my voice matters anymore. I shouldn't even be showing up on the internet. Everybody's got it under control. I don't fit the narrative. I don't. I don't have anything important to say, and nobody cares. It was the last week of August in 2020 of this year. And I just went into the community and I said, hey, let's do a social media detox because I think social media is impacting my mental health. And so September 1st, we said a group of us decided to do a social media detox, and we do this often because I know what it does to me, especially since losing that big account. And what that tells me is I was tying too much of my value in numbers and followers and not the impact of the work that I can do in the world. Because every social media break, I learned something, and I literally had that moment of, okay, I'm tying too much of myself, my value in some platform with all these people and all these numbers. And the story I'm telling myself instead of the truth is nobody cares about my voice. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about collective liberation. Nobody cares about healing. And I think it was the third or fourth day of the social media detox, just not being online and being with myself and finding my own truth. It was like, oh, I still got heal your way forward. I still believe in that. I still believe in that. I still believe in my work. I still believe I'm a great writer. I still believe that my words do matter. I get messages from people all the time about, I just got one Saturday, somebody ordered a book and she's like, oh, I didn't get my book. And I was talking to her and she's like, I really want to read it because your words are so meaningful to me. And so I got out the social media detox and said, we're going to sell 3,000 copies of Heal Your Way Forward. And I'm going to go live once or twice a day for 30 days. And I've been going live every day since September 8th. I'm a little tired. But that's the setup for the comeback is you just have your moment, you take a break, and you come back to it. And that's what history has shown me. No matter how many times you get rejected, I've written a book proposal 5 times. The same book proposal 5 times. And I have 2 choices. I can say, I'm a horrible writer. Or I can say, I just keep talking about Heal Your Way Forward till it's time. Because everything is about divine timing. And that's how I know that setbacks are set up for comebacks. And that's why I wanted to share the message today, because every moment of my life, even recently, even today, it's like there's just this unknowing void. And you have a choice as you can fall into the void and just fall into the loophole of powerlessness, or you can feel into it and know that everything is always working out, whether you see it or not. And so if I could just leave with anything, I just would leave you with a setback doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that you're in a moment of rebuilding and that you're not behind. You're right on time. It's just the process of becoming. And the journey forward is just healing our way forward. So no matter what the breaking news is today, no matter what person tells you you're a bad person because whatever, no matter what the new word play is, the new word salad that dysregulates your nervous system, just know, just have some belief in yourself because it does get better. That's the one thing that my mom has always said to me is that no matter what it looks like mine, it always gets better. You know, when they asked me about why the book is called Heal Your Way Forward, where that name come from, I don't know if I've publicly said this in a long time, but when people ask me about the book Heal Your Way Forward, where that name came from, I was sitting on a call with my publisher at the time, and was talking about the co-conspirator's journey. That's what I called the work. That's what it was with Heal Your Way Forward. And it was like listening, learning, taking action. And then they're like, okay, well, we could call it Check Your Privilege, the co-conspirator's journey. And then as I was looking at the map, I remember the one thing that my mother has always said is no matter what happens, you keep moving forward. And then I remember hearing Oprah say the same thing in a video. No matter what happens, you keep moving forward. And at the time, like my mom and Oprah were like the two biggest Black women in my life. And so I just kept hearing forward, forward, forward. And I just looked and I said, heal your way forward, because that's been the journey of my life. And so it was tying in my own personal journey of healing with what people in white bodies can do for their personal journey of healing. And so that's why it's Heal Your Way Forward, the co-conspirator's journey to an anti-racist future. And it just hit me right now, like, oh, the anti-racist future. That book is even calling you all to dream of something better. This book, I don't have it with me, but I just thought about it right now, like, oh, Heal Your Way Forward. I usually just say Heal Your Way Forward. I don't say the whole title, but it's like Heal Your Way Forward, the co-conspirator's guide to an anti-racist future. But in order to get there, you have to dream that there is possible, and you have to do the work in real time. So thank y'all for tuning in. I'm really grateful. Thank you, Tammy, for being here. Glad you asked for the moment that showed me, and telling me everything you believe is true. You are, you do, you always will. Thank you, Tammy. Tammy's been another person that's always been like, hey, I didn't hear you talk about your book today. Tammy's been in the background. She does tell me, hey, when you gonna do something for your book, or are you just gonna let the book sit there? So Tammy and Mario, my mom, we just keep going forward, y'all. So again, no matter what the breaking news is today, no matter what somebody on the internet has to say, no matter what, y'all, you got to remember that you still can dream, and you can still move forward. And the setbacks are just pauses, because there's always a comeback, no matter what. Let history be the teacher. Like even in the deepest suffering, every period of history where there is deepest suffering and the darkest oppression, there's always a light that comes through. Always in the collective, in the individual and the collective. So thank you for tuning in. If you are having a mental health emergency, please reach out to who you can in your life that can support you. If you're struggling, there are so many beautiful collectives that you can join. There's so many teachers out there that want to support you on your journey. If you don't have a copy of Heal Your Way Forward, if you go to YouTube and scan the QR code on the screen, it takes you right to the campaign, the 3030. I think I've ordered, I got to look at the numbers again, but we're getting there. Last time I called and put an order in, they said that there were only 2,700 books in, and with my order, it would go down to 2,600. The numbers are cute, remember? Like I said, the numbers are cute. The goal is just to move the book. The goal is just to get it in the hands of students, people who can't afford a copy, and let's just get it out there. So thank y'all for your support. I hope you have a beautiful Monday, and I will see you guys again. Peace.